On a cold February morning in 2019, the residents of Millbrook woke up to their worst nightmare. Alice Chen, the beloved night shift nurse who had delivered half the town's babies and held countless hands through their darkest hours, had vanished without a trace. Her car was found abandoned on a rural road, keys still in the ignition, purse untouched. But what investigators discovered next would shatter everything this small town thought they knew about the woman they trusted with their lives. Millbrook, population 8,400, is the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. Nestled in the heart of rural Pennsylvania, it's a town where neighbors still bring casseroles when someone's sick, and the local diner serves as the unofficial town hall for gossip and community updates. Alice Chen was as integral to this community as the century-old oak tree in the town square. At 35, she had been the night shift supervisor at Millbrook General Hospital for 8 years. Patients requested her by name. Families trusted her with their most vulnerable moments. She was the nurse who stayed late to comfort a scared child, who remembered every patient's birthday, who somehow always knew exactly what to say. But Alice wasn't just defined by her work. She was a devoted daughter to her aging parents, a loyal friend who organized the hospital's annual charity drive, and a woman who seemed to have her life perfectly together. She lived alone in a cozy Victorian house on Maple Street that she'd restored herself, complete with a garden that was the envy of the neighborhood. That's what made her disappearance so incomprehensible. People like Alice Chen don't just vanish. February 15, 2019 started like any other Thursday for Alice. She arrived at the hospital at 10:45 p.m. for her 11 p.m. shift, 15 minutes early as always. Security cameras captured her walking through the main entrance, coffee in hand, exchanging her usual warm greetings with the security guard. Her shift was routine, checking on post-operative patients, administering medications, comforting an elderly man whose family couldn't visit. At 3:20 a.m. she texted her friend Maria, "Quiet night, thank goodness. See you tomorrow for lunch." At 7 a.m., the day shift nurse arrived to find Alice's station empty. Her coffee cup was still warm. Her computer was logged in, showing she'd been updating patient charts just minutes before. Her coat and purse were gone, but her car keys weren't in her pocket where she always kept them. The security guard remembered seeing her step outside around 6:45 a.m. for what she said was a quick smoke break. Odd, because Alice had quit smoking 3 years ago. The cameras show her walking toward the staff parking lot, but then, nothing. She vanished into the pre-dawn darkness. By 8 a.m., when Alice failed to answer her phone or show up for her planned breakfast with her parents, the alarm was raised. By noon, her white Honda Civic was discovered 12 miles outside town on Old Mill Road, a route Alice had no reason to take home. Detective Mark Rodriguez had worked plenty of missing person cases in his 15 years with the Pennsylvania State Police, but something about Alice Chen's disappearance felt different from the start. The scene was too clean, too deliberate. In random abductions, you usually see signs of struggle, Rodriguez later explained. Broken items, torn clothing, evidence of violence. But Alice's car was pristine except for her absence. It was almost like she'd been erased. The initial investigation followed standard protocol. Police interviewed Alice's colleagues, family, and friends. They searched the woods around where her car was found. They checked her bank accounts, phone records, and social media. Everything painted the same picture. A woman with no enemies, no financial troubles, no reason to disappear. But as Rodriguez dug deeper, small inconsistencies began to emerge. Alice had withdrawn $500 in cash the week before, unusual for someone who typically used cards for everything. She'd requested extra shifts in the months leading up to her disappearance, telling supervisors she was saving for something special. And most puzzling of all, she'd recently changed her will, leaving everything to her parents instead of her younger brother David, whom she'd previously named as her sole beneficiary. 3 weeks into the investigation, Detective Rodriguez received a call that would change everything. It came from Dr. Amanda Foster, Alice's closest friend and fellow nurse, and her voice was shaking. "There's something I need to tell you about Alice," she said. "Something I probably should have mentioned earlier." What Dr. Foster revealed painted a dramatically different picture of Alice Chen's life. For the past 6 months, Alice had been receiving threatening text messages from an unknown number. Messages that started as romantic overtures but quickly turned sinister. "I know you're perfect for me. You can't hide from love. If I can't have you, no one can." Alice had been terrified but tried to handle it herself. She changed her phone number twice, but somehow her stalker always found her new number. She'd installed security cameras at her house and had even considered getting a restraining order, but she didn't know who to get it against. She was scared, Dr. Foster admitted through tears. But Alice was also stubborn. She didn't want to worry her parents or seem weak. She thought she could handle it alone. The investigation took another shocking turn when police analyzed Alice's deleted text messages. Hidden in her phone's memory were dozens of messages from someone who clearly knew intimate details about her daily routine. They knew when she worked, when she grocery shopped, even when she watered her garden. But the most chilling discovery came when investigators cross-referenced the timing of these messages with hospital employee schedules. Every single threatening text had been sent during hours when one particular person was off duty. James Morrison, a maintenance worker who had been employed at Millbrook General for 2 years. James Morrison was 29 years old, a quiet man who'd moved to Millbrook from Pittsburgh after what he described as relationship troubles. He worked the overnight maintenance shift, which meant he had access to every part of the hospital, including the nurses' stations where he could observe Alice's routines. When Detective Rodriguez brought Morrison in for questioning, the man's demeanor immediately raised red flags. He was overly helpful, almost eager to discuss Alice, describing her in unsettling detail. "She was perfect," Morrison said, his eyes lighting up. "Always so kind to everyone, you know? She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world when she talked to you. I could tell she liked me too." But Morrison's version of events didn't match reality. Hospital security footage showed him lingering near the nurse's station far longer than his duties required, often timing his work to coincide with Alice's breaks. Colleagues described him as creepy, and noted that Alice had specifically requested schedule changes to avoid him. The breakthrough came when police searched Morrison's apartment. Hidden in his bedroom closet were dozens of photos of Alice, taken with a telephoto lens from outside her house, the hospital parking lot, even through the windows of her favorite coffee shop. There were detailed notes about her daily routines, her friends, her family. It was a stalker's obsession shrine. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Morrison's facade cracked. But what he revealed next shocked even seasoned Detective Rodriguez. "I never hurt her," Morrison insisted, his voice breaking. "I loved her. I just wanted to talk to her, to make her understand we were meant to be together. That night, I followed her when she left the hospital. I just wanted to explain." According to Morrison's confession, he had approached Alice in the parking lot that morning. When she saw him, she ran to her car, but he followed her, pleading with her to listen. In her panic to escape, Alice had driven erratically, with Morrison following in his own vehicle. She was driving so fast, swerving, Morrison sobbed. "I was trying to get her to pull over just to talk. But she lost control on Old Mill Road. Her car went off the embankment." But here's where Morrison's story took a chilling turn. Instead of calling for help, he claimed he went down to check on Alice. She was unconscious but alive. And in that moment, Morrison made a decision that revealed the true depth of his obsession. "She looked so peaceful," he said with an eerie calm. "Like she was finally ready to listen to me. So I carried her to my car. I took her somewhere safe, where we could be together without all the noise and distractions." The investigation had taken a horrifying new direction. This wasn't just a stalking case or even a murder. Alice Chen might still be alive, held captive by a man whose delusions had spiraled completely out of control. With Alice potentially still alive after 3 weeks, the investigation became a desperate race against time. Morrison initially refused to reveal where he was holding her, claiming he was protecting her from a world that didn't understand their love. Detective Rodriguez employed a psychological approach, bringing in FBI behavioral analysts who specialized in cases involving delusional stalkers. They worked around the clock to break through Morrison's twisted logic. "We had to enter his fantasy," Rodriguez explained. "Make him believe that revealing Alice's location was somehow part of his romantic narrative rather than admitting to kidnapping." The breakthrough came when analysts suggested that Morrison could prove his love by ensuring Alice received medical attention she might need. Playing into his delusions of being her protector rather than her captor, they convinced him that a true love would want to make sure she was healthy and safe. Morrison finally broke. He led police to an abandoned hunting cabin 40 miles from Millbrook, deep in the Pennsylvania woods, a place where he claimed he'd been taking care of Alice, waiting for her to realize they were meant to be together. On March 8, 2019, exactly 3 weeks after Alice Chen's disappearance, police surrounded the remote cabin where James Morrison claimed to be holding her. What they found inside would haunt the investigators forever. Alice was there, but she was barely alive. Severely dehydrated, malnourished, and suffering from untreated injuries from the car accident, she had been chained to a bed in the cabin's single room. Morrison had been caring for her in his twisted way, bringing her water and canned food, talking to her unconscious form for hours, even reading to her from romance novels he believed she would enjoy. She was in and out of consciousness for most of the 3 weeks, Dr. Martinez from Millbrook General later explained. Her injuries from the accident, combined with the trauma and poor conditions, had put her in a critical state. Another few days and we might have lost her entirely. Morrison was immediately arrested and charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment. During his trial, psychiatrists testified that he suffered from erotomania, a rare delusional disorder where the sufferer believes another person is in love with them despite clear evidence to the contrary. Alice's recovery was long and difficult. The physical injuries healed, but the psychological trauma ran deeper. She eventually returned to nursing, but transferred to a hospital in Philadelphia where she could start fresh. She became an advocate for stalking victims and helped pass legislation improving hospital security protocols. James Morrison was sentenced to 25 years in prison. He still maintains that he was protecting Alice and that she will eventually understand his actions were motivated by love. The Alice Chen case forever changed Millbrook. The small town that once prided itself on never locking doors suddenly installed security systems. The hospital implemented new safety protocols, including panic buttons for staff and enhanced background checks for all employees. But perhaps the most profound impact was on how the community viewed the people they thought they knew. James Morrison had worked alongside Alice's colleagues for 2 years. He'd seemed quiet but harmless. He'd helped fix broken equipment and cleared snow from staff cars in winter. It taught us that evil doesn't always look like what we expect, Detective Rodriguez reflected years later. Sometimes it looks ordinary, helpful even. It hides behind a maintenance uniform and a willingness to work overtime. Alice Chen survived because of a community that refused to give up on her, investigators who wouldn't accept easy answers, and her own incredible will to live. Today she continues to heal others, but she also heals herself, one day at a time, one patient at a time, proving that even after the darkest night, dawn can still break. The night shift at Millbrook General continues, but it's never quite the same. Because sometimes, the people we trust to keep us safe are the very ones we need protection from.